1.4 billion people need reliable electricity, modern infrastructure, and upward mobility. They are building a massive industrial economy from the ground up, right now. But doing that without pushing the global climate past its breaking point is the hardest engineering and policy challenge of our time. Look at the numbers and you find a stark paradox. In absolute terms, India is the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases on the planet. But zoom in to the individual level, and its per capita emissions are among the lowest in the world. If this rapidly growing population powers its late industrialization with coal, following the exact same blueprint the West used over the last century, the carbon math required to meet the Paris Agreement targets becomes impossible to maintain. India's domestic energy policy isn't an isolated local issue. It is the single biggest variable deciding the global climate trajectory. In late 2021, at the UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow, India shocked the room. They announced the Panchamrita, 5 interlocking pledges. It was a surprise volunteer effort to write a completely new industrial blueprint for developing nations. This chart tracks India's non-fossil electricity capacity. The goal was to reach 50% by 2030. Watch the trajectory line. It crosses that 50% threshold right here in 2025. They hit a massive infrastructure target, 5 full years ahead of schedule. This performance has shifted India's geopolitical standing, establishing the country as a rare example of a major economy delivering on its non-fossil targets years before its own self-imposed deadline. Hitting those early targets required a staggering deployment of physical hardware. Solar energy has driven the bulk of it, with total capacity surging to roughly 133 gigawatts. Government incentives have pushed domestic solar manufacturing to 144 gigawatts per year, with technicians now producing the advanced cells and modules required for the transition within India's own borders. And the effort is highly decentralized. The PM Surya Ghar scheme alone is currently putting rooftop solar arrays onto 10 million individual homes. Wind capacity has followed a similar curve, pushing past 52 gigawatts. The domestic manufacturing base has matured so quickly that India is now exporting wind turbines to the rest of the world. All of this hardware culminated in a hard statistical tipping point in 2025. For the first time, non-fossil sources supplied the majority of all new electricity generation added to the national grid. This sheer hardware rollout proves a specific thesis. A developing economy can execute rapid economic growth and decouple from carbon at the exact same time. But that success exists alongside a stubborn reality. Absolute greenhouse gas emissions are still rising. As the industrial base expands, coal remains the undisputed baseload power source keeping the country running. Integrating all that new solar and wind power creates a severe grid deficit. Without a massive increase in battery storage and high-voltage transmission lines, the grid simply cannot handle the intermittent nature of renewables. Domestically, the urgency to build often collides with ecological protection. Large tracts of forest land are still being diverted for infrastructure and mining, placing high-stakes biodiversity zones directly in the path of development. Walking away from fossil fuels entirely is an incredibly difficult ongoing tightrope walk, not a finished success story. India has taken the credibility earned from its domestic grid and turned it into serious diplomatic leverage, starting with the International Solar Alliance. This map shows the geographical footprint of the ISA. It spans over 120 nations, situated perfectly between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, regions with abundant sunlight but low infrastructure investment. The alliance aims to mobilize $1.1 trillion to build solar capacity here. The vision is one sun, one world, one grid. By connecting these nations with high-voltage lines, they route continuous solar power across time zones. They've built secondary pillars too, launching the Global Biofuels Alliance and a coalition specifically for disaster-resilient infrastructure. They are using their sheer engineering scale to design a parallel climate architecture, one that isn't dominated by Western institutions. At the core of this strategy is the concept of climate equity. India argues that developing nations have a strict right to grow, and they shouldn't face rigid abatement caps just because wealthy nations industrialized first and used up the carbon budget. By scaling renewables so aggressively at home, they have proven that honoring the right to develop doesn't require abandoning the climate math. They are pulling a massive population out of poverty, electrifying a subcontinent, and laying down green infrastructure faster than anyone predicted a decade ago. India is currently writing, testing, and exporting a development model that offers a viable climate pathway specifically designed for the needs and constraints of the 21st century global south. 1.